What happened to that guy Steve? He doesn't show up
It's
anymore?
Penfield Green.
Travels?
It's our new.
Obscure little guy.
All right, we're going to call the meeting to order.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, quorum, correct?
Quorum. Yes.
Confirmation of the meeting agenda and order. Is there anything we want to take out of order, or are we missing anything on this agenda? Do we have the agenda item to review and approve continuation of Colliers? Did that get in there? Andy?
To do what?
Review and extend their services for the, I think, when do you, Ben, when's your last? November 30th?
Yeah, that was the end of our contract.
Their contract runs out November 30th, so we'd have to vote.
Oh,
And there's a
okay. No, that didn't make it into here. Do
All
we
right,
know?
I would suggest then, if we would, under report from, under agenda item 10, if there's no objection, I'd like to add review and consideration of the Colliers letter dated November 21st, 2016, regarding extended services. There's no objection?
It's November 24th.
Hearing none from the committee, we're going to add that to item 10, review and consideration of the Colliers' proposal for continuation of services. That letter is dated November 21st, 2010. I don't have copies, but I'd be happy to pass it around.
2016.
16. Yeah. Yeah, right.
They were very precious.
Yeah, I was getting confused. I mean, this is our third year,
Blends
going into our third year, right? Or fourth year?
Yeah, fourth calendar year. Yeah.
Okay, we have two, review and approval of meeting minutes. We're going to take them one at a time, unless anybody would like to address it differently. Item 4, review and approval of the meeting minutes from 10/27/2016. I'd consider a motion to waive the reading and accept. We'll have discussion. Is there a motion to waive the reading and accept?
I'd make that motion.
Seconded?
I'll second it.
Second. That said, discussion, corrections, additions. Hearing none, a motion to accept. Made, seconded. One abstention.
I abstain.
Two, you got three.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Motion to waive reading, I guess I had that, I doubled up on the motions. Motion to waive reading and accept the meeting minutes from 11/17/2016. All those in favor, any discussion, edits, changes?
Wait a second.
Oh, did I bring the wrong ones?
You're
Okay.
about 1027. Did you bring 1117?
No, I did some.
It was sent to us, though. It was.
I sent it to you anyway.
Yeah, it
It was
was,
out. Yeah, the
it was in the emails.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of acceptance of meeting minutes from 11/17/2016?
Aye.
Against? Any abstentions? Okay, not present. We have, the next item is item 6, election of officers for calendar year 2017. Do we do that at this meeting or in January, Andy?
I don't know when we did it last.
Do we do it at this meeting?
You can do it now, yeah.
I'd rather do it now because we can
Yeah.
do officers and we can do meeting dates for 2017 at the same time.
Okay, I would open the meeting then to nominations as far as chair, secretary, chair, vice chair, and secretary.
Do we do one at a time or just do?
We can do one at a time.
I'd nominate Jim as chair for 2017.
I'll second that.
I don't have my vice chair to run this, but secretary could call a vote on this, if you would,
Yeah.
please.
Do you just want to call the?
A motion and a second and a vote?
Yeah,
Yes.
and then you take over as the chairman for the
Yeah.
others.
Okay. So I would call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Not in favor?
I don't know
Abstaining?
whether to thank you or,
Do what I can. I'll relinquish my chairmanship
I
now.
could have run out of here when I was not chairman for 5 minutes.
Period.
Same salary, there's no salary increases, by the way.
Well, thank you. Vice Chair, is there a motion regarding Vice Chair? Do you want to continue on? Same slate? Is that where we're going?
I
in this?
nominate Bob Bolito for vice chair.
I'll second it.
Made and seconded. Any other nominations? It's a coveted job. All those in favor? Against? Thank you.
And at the same salary.
Same salary. The remaining office is secretary?
All right, I'll nominate Andrew for that.
Okay. Second?
I'll second it.
Made and seconded. Any other candidates, discussion, issues, complaints?
I'm here to serve.
All those in favor of
Aye.
the
Aye.
nomination? Thank you.
Also at the same salary.
Yep.
Can't catch a break.
So we've elected a slate for 2017, which would be our fourth year?
Fourth calendar year, yeah.
Yeah. So the next item is item 7, review and approve proposed meeting dates of 2017. Andy and I at least picked out these dates to get us started through the month of March, thinking that the project would be closed out by the end of March. Does that
So-
make sense to the
to make-
construction team?
Well, to be safe, and Judy sent me a note afterwards.
I got the same one. right.
that we should extend it out at the very least 6 months, or just do all the meetings for the entire year and then just cancel the entire slate when the project's wrapped up.
I don't think anybody wants to schedule a year. That's scary.
Otherwise, we have to call special meetings if we're going to
Right.
meet outside the calendar. So that's the truth.
Well, we have February and March, so should we just include April and May and be done with it? And if you'll publish the meeting dates, it's the second and fourth
Yeah.
Thursday each one of those months, and if you wouldn't mind publishing that to the town clerk, unless anybody has any objections, we'll proceed that way.
So
have to
we have to vote on it.
We are,
So
okay.
we would amend the suggested dates to be April 13th and 27th.
Well, I think what we're saying here is you already have on our agenda the dates for January, February, and March, and I guess we're saying April and May. So we would, I guess the motion would be the second and fourth Thursday
Oh, I see what you're saying.
of every, or we could do it once a month.
So you want to just make the motion second and fourth Thursday of each month, January, February, March, April, and May?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
that's, I mean, I understand where Judy's coming from. I think it's a good suggestion. Then we can just cancel them.
Yeah.
I'd rather have some way to self-extinguish this committee.
Well, you may have it puts restrictions on the agenda if we have to call
Yeah.
special meetings all the time.
Yes.
so.
Are we at a point in time where we can schedule these monthly as opposed to twice a month? And the reason why I ask is if we're truly at the, if we're truly at the point of winding down, you know, those of us that have schedules that we try and plan, you know, I hate to plan all my Thursdays out and then have to cancel them, you know. I mean, look, if we need to meet still twice a month, that's fine.
No, I think it's a good point. We could easily go to the second Thursday and drop the second meeting. I mean, we know from the past 3 or 4 months, that's what we've been doing. So I'd entertain a motion that we go to January, February, March, April, and May, the second Thursday, 6 o'clock of each month.
Does that fit all the payment schedules and everything like that? Are we going to run into any issues?
That's going to be a
Ben?
problem. Ben, does that screw things up as far as, should it be the fourth, or third, or the fourth Thursday? Would that be better, because then you could get the requisitions through?
You can't ask him, he doesn't have a contract.
Right.
He's got 2 more minutes running on his remaining.
Third or fourth doesn't make a difference to us because Shawmut gets their pay application in by the 25th. So if we do it the third week of every month, then it gives us 3 weeks to really go through the information. If it's the last week of every month,
That works.
yeah, either way.
So it would be the fourth Thursday of every month. That's what we're going to revise this motion.
Sure. Sure, we can do that. Well, hold on, we don't have the motion quite yet.
The only advantage to 2 days a month is you might get a snow day. I don't know if it matters, or we could just reschedule it some other day.
I think we just reschedule.
Yeah. Let's do it.
And to your point, Ellery, I think that we could have one or two of them right on site sooner than later.
Yeah.
You know, the only reason I didn't pick up on that is because it's, like that great room is wall-to-wall stuff, parts, material.
Okay.
So, I guess I made the motion, look forward to a second.
So the motion would read that the meetings would be held the fourth Thursday each month, January, February, March, April, and May,
Correct.
those 5 months.
That an agreement with everybody?
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So we've established the officers, we've established our meeting dates. Is there anything else, Andy, we're supposed to be doing administratively?
No. Right, Judy?
We don't have to read the FOIA declaration and pledge allegiance? Right. We're good at that.
How do you, question, how do you end the committee?
At the end, I have a list of things that you can look at.
Uh-huh.
It's a checklist with 10 things on it, and what you would do at the end is you have to go through make sure all the warranties are in order and all the inspections are in order, and I would get that to you soon, okay?
Uh-huh.
If you're interested, Jim. And also then what you would do is make a motion to disband the committee. And if you think there might be a stray invoice or something coming up, you might want to also make a motion to have the executive committee handle any invoices that might show up at the last minute.
So do you have the do you also make an executive, a motion to have the executive committee approve the last meeting minutes?
Back?
No.
In the paper
No, they
bag?
just don't get approved?
Don't get
As we go out
Okay.
the door?
That was,
And then we must go before the
We are.
board of selectmen and approve.
okay. Okay.
Okay, so we'll do that, and you'll give us the protocol. Thank you. All right, that said, we're at an agenda item 8, a report from Shawmut Design and Construction regarding project progress and outstanding issues. We hear from Shawmut.
So we are still tracking with our, I would call it our original plan and scheduled work so that we can, we're looking to get a TCO on 12/27. It's already been scheduled with the town. And we are looking for a CO on 1/6. As far as the construction project, for the most part, I'm not going to go through everything, but landscaping is complete as far as the contract portion. Parking lot, most of the site work, just about everything on the site work is complete. The only few things that are left on the exterior of the building are some handicap signs and maybe some additional items that I'm sure we're going to talk about a little bit later that might be or may not be added. We also have, that's on the site portion. On the building exterior, closing up some of the ceilings that were just recently inspected within the last couple weeks for the overhangs in the breezeway. The railings are going in. They started putting up some of the cable rail today, as a matter of fact. We have our cedar cap rails back. Those are all, we're kind of finalizing what we're going to do for a finish on those probably tomorrow morning. And those will start getting sealed on the inside the building where the temperatures allow us, and then they'll be installed. Gutters started going in today, so that'll get wrapped up probably mid-next week. I would say by mid-next week, most of the exterior finishes, Roofing will be 100% done. Right now, it's 99.9. There's just a couple pieces of flashing that are missing. All the trim will be done, all the roofs will be closed up, the ceilings rather will be closed up. So the exterior of the building, as far as the construction portion goes, we should be really in great shape by the middle to end of next week, no problem. Interior carpentry and finishes, we've actually already started final cleaning a lot of the west portion of the building, so the lifeguard station and the west wing bathrooms. We're cleaning up all those partitions and a lot of the stainless steel on the service windows. A lot of that is underway. Kind of going further in, so most of the west end is done. The great room, we started painting. We just got our selections for paint colors last day or two. We started painting that. A lot of the trim work is getting wrapped up in there just prior to the painting. Most of the corridor and the bathrooms that are inside, the bathrooms are pretty much wrapped up. We have some final cleaning going on there, a couple odds and ends as far as cleaning light fixtures, changing some of the bulbs and ballast. That's all kind of ongoing this week. We should start final cleaning those bathrooms as soon as early next week. Locker wing. The locker wing, the partitions are built. I think there's few odds and end pieces of hardware left to go on some of the doors. The bathrooms have all their wall finishes on. All the rooms that are in the locker wing, such as the storage areas, most of those wall finishes are all up. I think really what's left in the locker wing is a little bit of floor tile, and then obviously the final painting of the locker wing for the partitions and the floors. The exterior bathrooms off of the locker wing, they're doing tile. They should be grouting. I think all that work should be done by early to mid next week. So we got a pretty good handle on a lot of the contract stuff that was in. There are a few outstanding items that have just sort of popped up. We are working at the fastest pace we can to get them resolved. I can either talk about them or maybe Kevin wants to. I'll let you talk about them. Want to do that? They're just a few mechanical items that were mostly, I would say pretty much wholly related to the existing building from when it was originally constructed. Now that everything's up and running, some of these items are sort of rearing their ugly heads, and we're trying to work through getting them done. But they are all pretty much code issues that have to be addressed, and we're fairly confident that we can get all these done by January 6th, and I think it really is going to be 100% mostly based on how quickly we can effect the repairs, get the materials, and get that done. To sit here and say absolutely, definitely, I don't know if I'd say that, but I would say there's a really good chance that we can wrap a lot of this stuff up and get it completed. So we're still in the planning stages of trying to get it figured out. Nothing super major, but it's all very important for CO.
Questions for Jeff? We had, I think at the last meeting, you were talking about a CO on 1227, and now you've mentioned it would be a TCO on 1227?
Correct.
The idea is what to...
Well, so that decision was kind of made when we started seeing some of these items coming up. So essentially, when you go for a CO, you're pretty much telling the building department, you know, hey, listen, we're done, we're finished, we're not coming back in here. When you go for a TCO means, you know, the building is pretty much 98% complete. All you really have left to do is maybe some odds and ends, little painting things. All your life safety is in order. All of your mechanical equipment is functioning the way it's supposed to function, especially related to life safety. Some of the stuff that has come up is directly related to the safety functions of the building. For example, one of the items is the way the HVAC system interconnects with the fire alarm system. that's an item that is really going to be a big problem to get the CO on. So that's why we kind of are looking at the dates, we're looking at our time, we're looking at where we are, looking at the problems that we're kind of addressed, or sort of uncovering right now, and we're saying, all right, rather than try to go for that CO, we're not going to do that on the 27th, we're going to wait till the 6th.
Problem was
The other nice part about that is
that Jason,
going for the CO, you know, the town of Fairfield, their building department actually is they're tough, but they're very, very good. So what happens with them is they hold us to the letter of law, and if we say we're going for a CO, and they come in and there's something not done or something that would keep us from getting that CO, you don't automatically get a TCO like you would in some other towns. If you ask for a CO, that's what they're coming to give you. So what we think we're doing here is by asking for the CO, we'll have most of our stuff done. We'll know we have a few things that might be left over. They'll walk through the building and they'll give us a really good idea of what they're going to be looking for the CO. So we'll kind of go into the CO with a little heads up on the things that we might have missed or the things that they're going to be looking for that weren't captured in the drawings. So it should help us on the 6th to have a little cleaner getaway for the CO.
Yes.
I don't understand the issue of the HVAC and the fire alarm. Why is that a problem?
I guess I will talk about it, or you want to?
Oh, is Kevin going to talk about it? Okay.
Yeah, I can answer now. So in the kitchen, the commercial kitchen, there's two things. When the exhaust hood is turned on because they're exhausting, cooking, odors and so forth, there's a unit on the roof that has to turn on as well to bring in fresh air to make up for it. So you're not pressurizing the building. They're not connected. They were supposed to have been connected. It never happened when the building was built. That has to be fixed. Then the other thing is when the fire alarm system is triggered because there's a activation from a smoke alarm or some other reason that the fire alarm system gets triggered, it's supposed to shut down that air conditioning unit for the kitchen. So it's not spreading smoke throughout the building, and that's not connected. It has to be connected.
So are these major things that are going to cost anything, or?
They're not major. Without getting too detailed on it, most buildings like this have what they call a building management system, where it's sort of a computer. Everything kind of ties into that computer, for lack of a better term, and you can sort of go in the computer and everything's sort of controlled from that one point. You can say, all right, when this happens, when this happens, that happens. The building doesn't have a building management system. Basically, the building is, all these systems are wired with, we'll call them zone valves or different things that make other things happen. What we have to do is we have to really dig into the sort of mechanical of how they originally hooked this all up, what they have in there that we could use or what they don't have that we might need that we could use to make these different systems talk to each other and do what we want it to do. So it's more of a trying to figure out what it is and how we work with it than it is like a big cost item. I don't think there's a huge cost in any of these.
Wiring.
It's more of a figuring out what's there and how to make it work.
Wiring and switchgear thing. Are you carrying, Ben, are you carrying a number, best estimate?
I am, yeah. It's in the stuff I brought tonight, but I'm...
All right, well, we can get to it, but we are carrying it in the estimated cost to complete.
Okay.
I will say, though, that that design and construction team, just from being periodically dropping in on both Rich and I dropping in on the OAC meetings, have been pushing against a pretty good headwind on a lot of small stuff, whether they be maintenance issues or whether they be this particular issue, or the fire alarm in the kitchen not being connected to what, the automatic gas shut-off, or was there an issue with that?
We were okay on that because the fire marshal said as long as there is a shut-off,
Nearby?
which there is for both kitchens, there's just not a
Hit the
push
button,
button that
urgency.
you slam on your way out for the warming kitchen. But
So-
he said as long as it can be disconnected, that was adequate.
Seasonal drainage improved, I mean, a lot of improvements for maintenance and operation, no spending of money for making it a different building or adding features to the building, but as far as turning it back over to the town as a fully operational facility to code, that's what these issues are really basically all about.
All right.
Any questions regarding Jeff's report? Anything that you want to add, Ken or Mark? Okay, the next agenda item 9, report from DeStefano and Chamberlain regarding outstanding design and engineering issues, or just generally a kind of a project report, Kevin?
Yeah, I thought what I'd do is I assembled photos that I've taken mostly today, some earlier in the week, and just run through them if that's all right.
Be great. You want to do anything with the lights, and, or do you?
Can we ask our friend from Fair TV, there's help to turn the lights? You know which ones to hit? Awesome, thank you. Okay, so it's a view from the western end of the site looking towards the building, where you see a lot of completed work, the parking lot, the striping, the site work, landscaping, most of the exterior paint on the building. So I'm going to rifle through these, and please just interrupt me when there's something anybody has a question on. Let's see, this is close-up at the retaining wall looking at the locker wing. Right behind the pine tree in the frame there is the gas meter. So I took this photo from a very convenient spot, but that's where the gas meter is. It was originally supposed to be over here, so I think it wound up in a better position. And I don't know if that's an item that'll be on the agenda later, but just so you can orient yourselves. This is the breezeway, the end that faces the parking lot. So it juts out from the building approximately 7 feet. Comes a focal point. And I apologize, these aren't exactly in order. This is one of the typical lockers in the locker wing. As you walk down the aisle, you see these doors. This is the easternmost bioswale. This is after all the landscaping was in. The catch basin in the center you see is raised up above the mulch. That's the quote-unquote overflow, so that the basin can fill up with storm water and then spill over to the top. This is connected to the catch basin in the street. There's also a perforated pipe under the topsoil and under all the mulch that connects into the catch basin. The western bioswale is similar. It's longer, so it has several catch basins, but it's the same type of setup.
Is that the landscaping that was put in that I'm looking at, those?
That was the
sprigs?
landscaping that you approved at the very last meeting, the last extra landscaping item that you voted on.
Uh-huh.
So I'm sure you're noticing these are fairly small plugs. These are grasses, these are spray grasses, but because of the time of year, they're all chopped down to the ground. So they don't look like much right now. There are some more ornamental shrubbery type plants back here.
Hey, Kevin, what's the condition of those bollards and the roping along the street? I mean, is that, I know it's probably not in your purview.
That's something that Jeff has worked with the DPW superintendent on directly, as far as there's some areas where they have to be cut and patched in. I mean, some of the bollards were in poor condition and rotted. I believe those have already been pulled. And at the two ends of the site where the temporary entrances are or were, there are a few that will be put back in with rope to make it look like they were before.
One continuous, yeah. My only concern is people walking across the bioswale and compressing that, so.
Yeah. The rope is fairly continuous across both bioswales. So.
Okay.
One of the items that'll be on your agenda is adding a strip of river rocks along the edge of the asphalt parking lot, because what we are finding is that on heavy flows, the mulch is eroding, as you can see right here. So a recommendation came from the landscape architect to add a 18-inch wide bed of rounded stones so that the water can be broken up enough that it's not being channeled or funneled or disturbing the mulch. So that's a close-up of what that issue is. There are 2 traffic islands that lead to stairs that get you up and over the retaining wall. This is one that's closest to where if you remember where the berm was, and there was this long kind of lightning bolt-shaped ramp that led up to the playground area. This is that area. The original stone retaining walls to the right. So what you don't see here is there are going to be railings on the concrete stairs. There's one on each side and one down the middle. And then I don't remember, Jeff, do you remember, do we have bollards, light bollards on this one? Or is that just at the main entrance? Okay. This one, we have a light pole up here, and I know there's an existing light pole right here, so we had enough light. At the main entrance, we actually have some light bollards as well. The Town of Fairfield recently regraded around the beach side of the building. They brought in some additional sand and leveled everything. Came out very nice. So this is the backside of the locker wing looking towards Rickard Beach. This is kind of standing on the so-called horse trail looking towards the front corner of the locker wing. So that's the end of where the landscaping was put in, where it just turns back into beach. You can see the end of the retaining wall curling up here along where the horse trail is.
Kevin, is there any hard edge on the edge of that bed where the mulch meets the sand?
There isn't a hard edge. I'm not sure that would have been a better thing or not. I mean, it's going to be an edge that's going to move with the sands as they shift with the wind.
Yeah.
So we just left it as a soft edge.
Okay.
Again, looking up the horse trail, it looks much as it did before as far as the contour of it. This is the front traffic island. So again, there's some railings that still have to be installed. This is a temporary wood rail. And then there would be 2 little bollards here with lights in them, light bollards, so that there's light at the leading edge of this where you step off onto the parking lot over the curb. In the background, you can see the stairs that lead up to the breezeway for the beach traffic that goes through the new breezeway. This is the primary handicap ramp here in front of the building. And then further to the right off the image would be the main entrance to the gathering room. It's essentially the same photo. And you can see the reinstalled hydronic tube collectors for the domestic hot water system are up here. They went back, or almost in the same spot they were on the old building. Yeah, again, a little bit out of order. This is one of the typical new shower stalls in the locker wing. So a 3-foot by 3-foot shower with changing space outboard of it in the dry. The walls are clad with fiberglass paneling just for hygienity. Typical aisleway inside the locker wing. So you have the doors leading to lockers on the left and right. All of the structure, all the wood framing is all painted with one coat of white paint to kind of give it a whitewash look. The electrician's installing the lights here, but there are a significant number of reinstalled skylights in the locker wings. There's a lot of daylighting, as there was before.
Kevin, that black material is just protection on the floor. That floor is...
Oh, yeah, this is just a temporary protective material, because the floor in here is the same as the floor outside on the decks. It's a natural wood decking product with 2 coats of stain. So Shawmut's just protecting that so it doesn't get damaged. This is a loft above the new restrooms in the locker wing, so this is the guts of how you get hot water to the showers and any place else where it's needed. This was something I think that was approved at a prior meeting, basically a waterproof tub that we built underneath the water heaters with a drain in the middle, so that God forbid these ever leak, it's all captured. So it's kind
High
of...
enough to capture everything, in other words, if those water tanks, one of them went, those lips high enough to capture all of it, or would they eventually just drain
Well,
it
it's
down?
it's a 4-inch high lip, and then there's actually a floor drain in the middle. That's it's a significant floor drain. I don't remember the diameter of it, but I mean, it's sufficient. Let's say that was a shower stall. It would be more than enough to take the flow from a shower head. So
Because I just had a problem with the town, I have a water heater on the second floor, and they made me take the water heaters out, build a whole thing underneath, so I was just querying how
Right.
far you have to do.
Basically the same thing. The drain here actually ties into the, Jeff, is it the sanitary system? It goes to, okay. Yeah, it goes to the waste, sanitary waste system in the building. This is just kind of standing on a ladder looking back at all the lockers that have been framed. You notice the doors are already painted. Those were the original doors that were salvaged and repurposed because they were in really good condition. They had a nice piano hinge on them.
And Kevin, are the rest of the interior locker going to get did they get a coat of paint or like one spray?
Yes, they will.
Okay.
Because the locker wing was basically built in 2 stages, the first stage was, I mean, you could almost say it was completed on the inside. I mean, everything was painted and a lot of the systems were in place. So now they're catching up with the middle section. Front of the locker wing. The cable rail's starting to go in. This was taken this morning. So the stainless steel cable threaded through the wood posts with the screwed-in connectors on the end. This is the lifeguard station, obviously, or first aid, I should say, obviously with the Red Cross. The lifeguard station is just beyond it in the next room. Those were some, those are examples of the acoustical panels that would need to be installed in the gathering room. These were actually, Jeff was able to get them and bring them to the site, and we're not thinking that we'll be able to use these because of the color. Unfortunately, we've kind of had some discussions with the Parks and Rec department as far as the use of the space and making it as marketable as possible with an appropriate color palette. So it doesn't look like those colors are going to work in the room. But those are the types of panels that would be going in the gathering room to attenuate the sound. First aid station again, being cleaned up. That's the existing women's room, I believe. This was this morning. It's being cleaned. All the work is complete in there, so they're going through the process of trying to scrub everything down. Same in the men's room. If you had been in here, this is the men's room. This whole area was torn up because this was where there was water damage and mold. The fact that it looks just like it did before is really quite amazing. I mean, this wall was gone. Jeff was able to find the same tile. I think they really did a great job making it look like it always was. Some of the tile in the building was not readily available, so this was a patch in the concession stand where really, you know, it's really not much importance that the tile color doesn't match. This is just where people will be serving hot dogs and burgers and so forth. So in this photo, you'll see some of the extra insulation work that was done in the building where the fiberglass insulation either wasn't put in properly or had been damaged by rodents or displaced or was laying on top of the ceiling. So this was the additional insulation scope. The contractor came in that was working for Shawmut and put in all new fiberglass insulation with this foil facing that acts both as a flame retardant barrier but also as a vapor barrier. And I would say almost in every case, we now have insulation that's above the hot and cold water pipes in the ceiling where it really should have been. So the building is much better protected, I think, from both an energy standpoint but also a freeze-up standpoint than it was before. So this is ready for the tiles to go back in and the kitchen to be cleaned up again. These are the cedar top rails Jeff was talking about that they're working on indoors, and they're putting a finish on them. He brought me this sample. This is the cap rail, so when you're standing on the deck and you're putting your arm on the railing looking out at the water, this is what will be on top of the railing, natural finish cedar. This is the final color for the gathering room. If you remember, it used to be kind of a cream, like an off-white, but kind of a creamy off-white. And so this was something that was looked at by the Parks and Recreation staff, and they felt this would be a better choice for the room. So you have the gray on the top and the same as before, the white beadboard on the bottom. Should look very nice.
Was that, for timeline, and you referenced the acoustical panels, was that made around the same time? I mean, was there an opportunity to sort of coordinate with those acoustical panels?
There was, but there were some pretty strong feelings that the color was important and that it wanted to be something different than what was there before. What was there before was almost the same color as the creamy acoustical panels that were on those pallets in the other photo. I mean, all I can say is it was something that was discussed, but, you know, we had input from the town departments on that, and they felt strongly that it should be a more suitable color for the room.
Okie dokie.
More of the new insulation system. Again, an example of how everything now is above the piping where it should be. So, and then this is the front corridor that's painted a new color. This is like kind of a, I don't know what you call it, federal blue, but it looks very nice when you go out there and look at it. The breezeway looking out towards the water, this is the beadboard ceiling that's been put in. We do have exposed sprinkler piping because there really wasn't a way, because it's a dry system, because it's all either outdoors or in unheated areas, there wasn't a way to conceal it completely. So we just went with two mains that run down the length of the breezeway, and they're symmetrical from the ridge line. So I don't think it's too bad.
Can it be painted, Kevin?
They could be. We talked about that on site. My concern only is that the paint on galvanized steel doesn't tend to stick very well. So
Protected.
I would hate for it to flake off. But everything is galvanized, so it is protected from corrosion. This is one of the two outdoor showers, and might be hard to see, but there's a concrete pad here. So this is only about 10 or 15 feet from the ramp and steps up onto the deck. So there just needs to be a few sections of boardwalk. I didn't get this gentleman's name, but he's doing a fine job on the tile. This is the new women's room of the locker wing, but this is not the room that serves the locker wing renters. This is accessible from the exterior, so anybody who's on the beach comes up onto the deck and can use that bathroom. Just outside that bathroom, this is the deck that serves it. Water fountain in the middle, the door to each room, kind of symmetrical about that.
Again, that black material is protection.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, that's just temporary. Well, you can see the decking right here in between those two strips. Same area, but just backed out a little bit so you see the sand. So you see the stairs and this ramp here actually do run into the sand down about 12 inches from the surface, just so with just normal seasonal shifts of the sand, there's still steps there. There's still a ramp there.
Kevin, before you go, these numerous green pipes sticking out of the ground, is that where the gutters and leaders are going to tie into?
Yep.
And where do they go from there?
They tie into a system of perforated piping under the building that's probably several hundred feet long cumulatively because it wraps around in a grid. And then what doesn't get discharged into the ground from there is an overflow, but in the duration of construction, we've never found anything coming out of the overflow. So it all seems to be going into the stone that's under the building and then into the sand from there and just being absorbed.
Do those get a sleeve? Or painted?
They're going to get cut down when we put the gutters in.
Yeah, you won't see the green. I believe the plan is that they have a transition fitting that goes from aluminum to plastic, and that'll be right at grade. So all you'll see is white coming down to grade.
I can't remember, was there always going right from the sand up the steps, so sand eventually gets accumulated up on the deck, and I assume the sand works as sandpaper and eventually wipes away the steps and the thing? Is that the way it was before? I just don't remember.
There were numerous steps and ramps up to the decks, and
But there was sand.
there may have been some pads put out leading up to them, but other than that, I mean, at some point you're gonna, the beach stops and the building starts. So I'm sure it's a constant maintenance thing as far as sweeping it off.
Kevin, that dark gray skirt, is that the recycling of the previous building's materials?
Yeah, that was, where we could, we tried to reincorporate old materials. So this was the composite decking that was cladding the decks on the building that we kind of all agreed we weren't going to reuse because there were problems with sections not being attached or somebody falling through. So we used it as a breakaway skirting on the building. This is actually with a coat of paint on it, just to make it uniform. There was one coat of dark gray paint put on everything, so it blends together.
That item just left of your arrow, the fact that, yes, right there.
Yeah, that should be a punch list item. It's kind of a weird little gap there.
Yep.
This is the breezeway looking back in towards it from the water.
Wasn't there a handicap ramp that you could go from the stairs all the way down to the water? I believe at one time, I could be wrong, but I believe the town made us put in a ramp so someone could take a wheelchair and actually get down almost to the water on a wooden platform. I think if you talk to people in Park and Rec, I'm sure that was the case.
I think Parks and Rec, they have like those big plastic
Yeah.
that like interlock and those
Yeah.
go down to the water. But I think that's a Parks and Rec item that they have for all the beaches.
They didn't have one there, they had one at Jennings.
Right.
There was never one at Medford.
This was taken today, so you can see that the glass has been cleaned up. Curtain wall looks great. It looks like it always did, except now it's all straight and the doors work. I didn't mean that to be snarky, but it did sound that way. This is the wood structure out here. That was power wash, and I believe there was a coat of sealer put on everything, so it does look. It looks a little darker, but I think it looks better because it's more uniform. It doesn't look like it's all stained and discolored. So I guess this is the best way to show you how see-through the railing system will be. I mean, this is it. The cables are run through the wood posts. You can see the cedar piece on top. It's not attached, and this is not 100% complete, but it gives you an idea of, I mean, you're going to see through.
What color is that
The
top
railing.
rail going to be?
Our plan was to make that clear, just a clear finish on the cedar, and it will,
Similar to what we see.
yeah, very similar to what we see. It's never going to stay that new. It will tend to gray out over time, as cedar does. This beach area is closest to the concession stand, so shows you that. This is the ramp that's closest to the concession stand, right off the beach, up the ramp. And then the overhead doors are right over here. Again, looking back, so the concession stand deck, it does extend out beyond the roof. This was a roof that I think you had voted to accept a recommendation from Parks and Rec that we didn't need to build a roof over this piece of deck. That's the piece of deck that's not roofed. Just some of the nuts and bolts for the railing system. There's the guy putting in the railing system. He's a very OCD guy. In fact, that's the name of his company, OCD, which is great. And he's doing, what I'm trying to say is he's meticulous and he's doing a very good job. I mean to besmirch people with OCD. That's the ceiling outside of the existing restrooms. The light fixtures are up, the speakers are going up. They still have work to do to caulk the end joints and clean it up a bit, but it's looking good. Gathering room deck again. Curtain wall again. The ordering windows for the concession stand, they've been cleaned up. They look really good. Some of the stainless steel out here, it's a harsh environment, and they can get it so clean, but you will still see some pitting on some of the surfaces just because the stuff doesn't last forever out on a salt exposure.
And that's real wood decking. That's not some funky composite or something.
It's real wood. It is easily replaced. It's readily available. So, I'm still very happy with that choice instead of a composite material here. Let's see, that's the ramp leading down towards the parking lot, so that's the one closest to the first aid and lifeguard stations with stairs on each end. A little deck that leads to the roll-up door for the lifeguard station. Looking back at the deck outside the bathrooms, it's shower pole number 2. Landscaping in front of the west wing. You almost don't even see the transformer with the trees that were planted there. That's the same shower pole. Those are the plastic mats that Corinne was referring to. So both shower poles are within like 15 feet of a hard surface. So I think it'll be very easy to Parks and Rec to lay out some mats so that when you wash your feet off, you can walk on a nice surface and get back to civilization. Another shot back at the building. This is the asphalt ramp so if you're approaching the front of the building with a delivery cart or wheelchair or whatever you're bringing up, you can come up this ramp and you can go left. You can head towards the ramp that gets you up to the building. You can go straight to this little loading dock that's the door to the kitchen. So it should be very easy for delivery, vehicles to come up here. There is a set of stairs here. We didn't have room to put in a full ramp, but it's a delivery ramp that you see sometimes mounted underneath the back of a delivery truck, could be easily put there and set there, and a hand truck could be carted up. Transformer again. Main steps up to the front entrance. So it's accessed by that same asphalt sidewalk. Another overall shot of the front, and I think we're back to the first one.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Could you hit the lights for us? That'd be great. Thank you, Kevin. Anything else to report as far as the project is concerned? I know you had an electrical mechanical engineer walk through.
Yeah, we still need them to come back one more time because I want them to prepare punch lists. They have been out to the building several times as the work has progressed, but I don't think they're quite ready for punch lists yet on those items. I, as the architect, have done a couple of punch lists for some of the work where Jeff has said they're ready, but there'll be a lot more of that as we get closer to the TCO.
Is a punch list something that are going to cause an impact on the schedule?
Should.
Okay, I think it would be helpful if the punch lists were circulated to the committee, because it'll give us an example of what we're looking at as we finish up the project. So if you could make sure that whoever's managing them, that they just get circulated to the committee, because it's a great gauge of the finished product and what our expectations are. Any questions about the presentation or any engineering or design issues? Kevin, you did mention the acoustics. I don't want there to be any confusion. It's my understanding that that stack of those 2 pallets of acoustical panels were brought down from another Shawmut project. They haven't been used, with the possibility that they could be used on this project at obviously a very competitive price. The problem is the colors don't work with our facility. We continue to carry, I believe, in our budget, the installation of acoustical panels, right?
We were up until recently, just based off of recent job meetings where, because of that, and because of the long lead time, we've deferred it at the moment. Unless it gets brought back up again, and we think we're going to pursue it as part of this project, then we'll put it back in.
All right, so the committee is eventually going to address the installation of acoustical panels. It's something that has been brought to us by almost everybody, from the Board of Finance to the Parks and Rec. So the idea was, rather than to have it impact the completion of the project and impact the schedule, that we would paint the room out the way Parks and Rec wanted it, take a step back, and decide exactly what color the panels should be, order the panels, and hang the panels, and do it right. Because it turns out that the panels are going to be one of the most visual things you see in that room, and will block out sections of those timber trusses. So the job meetings really ended up culminated in a discussion that's kind of a real stop, look, and listen. Not stop the panels, in theory, but or make sure they're included in the project. So that's where we are on that. I appreciate the fact that, Jeff, you had that idea that we could use them, but it's just the wrong colors.
What's more expensive, repainting it to a color that these panels or panels?
Well, so there's two areas of panels. There are panels that will go right against the wall, and that's easy. I mean, they should match the wall color. That's the best way to make them disappear. And we talked to Parks and Rec about that. But the bigger issue was that the majority of what we need is going to be hung from the roof. And I kind of agreed with their take that the color of the fabric there should match the tone of the wood of the trusses and the decking so that it kind of disappears.
Yeah.
And no matter how we sliced it, the panels on that palette, they're just not enough of the same color to make that work. So
Trying to make something work that
we could have changed the paint on the wall, but it still wouldn't have gotten us out of the need to buy new panels. So, welcome.
Kevin, while we have you here, I know it'll come up, but I don't want it to really impact the approval cycle when we get to the approval agenda item. The CCD number 3, MEP code upgrades, is that what Jeff was referring to?
Yep, what Jeff referred to, two of them I mentioned with respect to the makeup air unit and the hood. Another one was the temperature of the hot water for the kitchen, so there needs to be one temperature for dishwashing and a lower temperature for hand washing. And for whatever reason, Shawmut determined that it was never done that way. It's one temperature. So I don't know that we've vetted out how that can be fixed. We think it's just a mixing valve. But it has to be done. I mean, it's a health code issue. We don't really have a choice on it. Also, I know you're aware, but so we found that in the original design of the building, there was no permanent heat provided for the two West Wing bathrooms, the exterior bathrooms. They did, during construction, rig up some heat that they stole from the kitchen with some thermostats and ductwork.
When you say during construction, you mean the original project?
Of the original project. So we looked at options. The mechanical engineer gave us a list of things that could be done to add heat, but the Parks and Rec department agreed that they would just not, they would winterize those two bathrooms and they just wouldn't be open. And that was the simplest solution. But we do have to add some valves and drains so that they can, because right now you can't really properly winterize those two bathrooms because the valves are on the unheated side of the insulated wall, so they have to be on the kitchen side. And I think Jeff has a very good handle on that already, and he's talked to the plumber about where those have to go. But that would also be under that CCD as some additional plumbing work.
All right, any questions? There's one other item, and that is that we did discuss the idea that, and I can pass these around, these are the same photographs that you just saw on the screen. There are these two islands that in front of the building. One's right in front of the building, and one is, you've seen them both. And the question was, should they or could they be concrete so that they are a little bit more formal entrance to the building? And it turns out to be an expensive and time-consuming option, and so it was dropped. But I just wanted you to know that there was a feeling about this being asphalt and not concrete, i.e. a sidewalk. But it turns out that there are asphalt walks all the way around the building, so it is pretty much what it is.
They put some sort of caps on that? Over the asphalt, is there any way to attach like slate or something like that over that? Just is for cosmetics, I assume you're concerned about, not you.
Well, I was concerned about cosmetics. I was concerned about this curb as a step, but the building inspectors looked at it. No, I think, no, not that I know of. I think once you start to take this out, you're going down the road to taking it out.
I'm not suggesting taking it out, I was wondering, is there any way to put some sort of adhesive and some sort of slate on top of the asphalt?
I guess the short answer is no, but it's very easy, and we plan on asking the town to paint the curb, reflective paint with some type of abrasive, granules embedded in it so you can't slip on it. And there are 2 light bollards right at the curb, so even at night, it should be lit up.
So I just want the committee to know that I think the cost was $8,000. $8,983 to convert that from asphalt to concrete, including the curb.
Each one.
Each one. So when we get there, there's an item that's coming up, we can discuss it, but that was an option that was discussed at the OAC meetings.
Would concrete last longer? In other words, is it, I'm not, you know me, I don't like to spend money, but the question becomes, will it asphalt as just with, it's no different than the driveway, right? It won't take any more use or less use and be worn away any faster.
Concrete's a very durable surface. It's more easily attacked by de-icing salts, but that's neither here nor there. I think both of them will function. Concrete is certainly nicer. It's more expensive. That's probably the reason why we didn't use it originally, is just we didn't want to unnecessarily, rack up expenses when we could use asphalt.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, what if you laid wood decking, right on top and attached it on the sides?
It's really tough to attach anything to asphalt. You mean on the surface coming off the steps?
Right, so if the surface was now wood decking comparable to what it is in the back of the building?
I think the first thing you'd hit is you'd change the riser dimension. It wouldn't be code compliant, right? You'd end up with a 5-inch riser on the first
The
step.
riser would be an issue. It'd be a little different going from asphalt to wood back to concrete, then to asphalt again. So you're mixing up quite a few materials. Not to say it couldn't be done, but I don't know that you'd be able to keep the asphalt there. You might have to take it up anyway to properly set in sleepers and really get it bedded properly.
Have you seen
Well, yeah, let's defer it then and see what later on if we have any money left in our kitty.
Kevin, do you have anything else for us? You're doing punch list, you're going to have the mechanical and the electrical engineers punch list?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, as Jeff said, there are a lot of, little things that come up and at this stage of the job, and Shawmut's been very good at dealing with them, and, we try to be responsive to things that come up with them. So, I think the process is going well, but, things like the mechanical equipment issues that we talked about, are to be expected, and we've had several of those that have come up. There's one other issue that has come up that we have to look at relocating the fire department connection for the building. So the fire department connection is basically there's fire at the building, they have to supply water to the building from another source for whatever reason. They can hook up their pumper to the building. There's actually a large diameter cap and where they can hook a fire hose. They weren't happy with where it is now. It's the same connection that's always been there, but the building is now raised up higher than it was, so it's not as easy to get to as it was before. So they've asked us to have it repiped closer to the retaining wall and to the parking surface. And Jeff has, I know, spent some time vetting that out with the fire protection contractor, and it sounds like he's got some good ideas. And but that's something that has to be done because we need the fire department to approve the project.
We've had a very positive relationship as far as the fire marshal and the building department.
I would say so. Would you agree, Jeff?
They've been excellent.
Okay.
One of the best building departments I've worked with. Super knowledgeable. They're not easy. I mean, they're actually probably the toughest I've ever worked with. But the fact that they're really knowledgeable and they've worked with us and they've helped us out, I mean, they really hold you accountable to the letter of law, that's for sure.
Any question?
They've been good. They've helped us out immensely. They've come in, we've asked for pre-inspections, we've asked for courtesy walkthroughs to just give us an idea of what they're looking at, and they pretty much responded to every time we've asked them to come, they visit.
Okay, any other questions as far as design and engineering inspections, sign-offs, punch lists? All of this during the month of January. We're hoping we will wrap this up, right? I'd be happy to entertain a discussion about whether or not well, let's go through the dollars first before we get back to this. Our next item agenda is 10, report from Colliers International. And also, item 10, as we want to make sure we address the Colliers letter of November 21st. Since you both are financed, there's that copy of the letter. I think you may have seen it.
I see, I did.
You'll have to excuse my voice. I've lost it and can't find it. So, I won't go over the schedule a whole lot, but I had actually provided you with the GMP macro schedule. This was the schedule that was supplied with the GMP contract prior to construction starting. As you saw from Kevin's photos, as you can see from this, there's been a lot that's been done. We're nearing the tail end. There has been some resequencing. I've circled some areas that, from looking at this schedule, looks like they're behind schedule. Shawman has been providing recovery look-ahead schedules to show us how they intend to get this work in the circled sections done prior to the substantial completion and certificate of occupancy dates. We feel comfortable with the recovery schedules that they've provided, and I know that Kevin, as well as us, as well as some members of your committee, have been on site multiple times a week and see the work getting done. If you don't have any other questions, if you want to flip to page 2 of this schedule, there's just a few risks to the schedule that we still feel like, talking with Shawmut, working every day with the schedule, we still feel like it's going to be delivered on time. The risks that we see, which we've already talked about tonight, are some of these MEP code-related issues that Shawmut has jumped on right away and is getting answers for and is starting to mitigate and fix. The fire department connection relocation, which is currently underway in terms of researching and getting the scope of work, so we feel pretty comfortable about that. If there's long lead times to certain finishes or furnitures or panels, like the acoustical panels that may or may not happen, that may extend the actual finish of the project, maybe not the certificate of occupancy per se, but there could be work happening after the fact from what we see in here. And not that it's been brought up, not that it might not happen, but any kitchen equipment related scope that's not in the GMP that may or may not fall as part of this project, that would obviously extend some parts of this out. Again, it may not impact the certificate of occupancy, but it would just extend the cycle of the finishes. Everybody's good with that, then we can move on to our financial summary. So the first page of our financial summary is a macro look. We typically provide these detailed financial reports, and we have this month as well, but this breaks it down into more digestible format. It's easier to read. So in terms of owner's contingency, as you can see, we started with $302,800. To date, our net approved expenditures are $82,034, leaving us with a physical contingency of $220,765. Right now, from our tracking methods, which we'll be able to see later on, we're tracking approximately $122,823 in possible exposures. These are items that we see, we hear about, RFIs, what we see at meetings that potentially can lead to changes that are out of contract scope and therefore would be changes or cost additional funds. To date, we are approximately $19,800 over in soft costs. That's based off the project budget. I will emphasize that there are line items in the project budget that we may not use in our soft costs. So this is assuming that we will spend what we budgeted at the beginning of the project as soft costs. These are costs other than Shawmut. So this figure actually can change for the better for us, but for now, we're tracking it at minus $19,800, which means that if the project were to end today based on our exposures at the estimated values that we've put to them, we'd be looking at a remaining owner's contingency of $78,142. Obviously, the project gets a 100% return of that. So following that same logic with construction contingency, as of now, there's $249,798 remaining based on what's been approved to date. We're tracking approximately $20,000 in exposures, which if that was the case at the end of this project, the construction contingency bucket, for lack of a better word, would be $229,798. The owner sees a 75% return of that at the end of the project. So the possible return today, if the project were to end today, is $172,349. Same logic down with the allowances. You can follow that logic down there. We're tracking an approximate return of $34,897. So when you go move to the box to the right, when you button all of this up together, we have a total project budget that includes soft costs, that includes the GMP and Shawmut's contract. That bottom line that you see in that box, that is our current estimated cost of the project at the completion, as we see it now, based on our exposures.
Well, that's 1 million, that number is 1,162,000.
It's $7,160,000.
I'm sorry, 7,162,313.
Right. Yep. So based off of what we know today and what we are projecting, the total potential return back to the owner is $285,387.
Is some of these contingencies shared with Shawmut?
Yeah. Yep.
And some of these contingencies that you didn't factor that in here, is it?
No, I did. If you look at construction contingency and GMP allowances,
Yeah.
if you look at the line right above where I highlighted in yellow, return rate on construction contingency, 75% return rate on
Okay,
allowances.
so that's where you get the payback,
rate.
okay.
We have
Thank you.
Another question.
So
Ryan?
the largest number, obviously, in terms of pending exposures in the contingencies under owner contingency status, 122,823. Could you provide the committee with a likelihood percentage?
As in an estimated percentage in terms of how accurate that number is?
Yes.
Yeah, I could do that today, of course, but we can only make these estimates, which is on the next page, by the way. These estimates that we're making are based on the information we know now.
I think it's better if you take a look at the next page.
Right.
It'll give you an indication, and we can make our own
So the next page is
judgment as how conservative it is, or,
right, these are our current list of exposures, and this is where we place our estimates of the exposures that we know about. And obviously, this is a living, breathing document. As we find out more information, some of these items come down, some of them move a little bit up. We try to be conservative in our estimates, though, so we try to at least carry, a 10 to 15% factor on a lot of these, just because you really don't know until you have it all figured out in the field as to what you're really going to see as an exposure.
And am I correct that that item number 76 is that $8,000 we talked a couple minutes ago?
Yeah.
In fact, that in the 122 is if we decided to rip out that asphalt and put in concrete, that would be part of the 122, we would still have money left at the end, am I correct?
That's correct.
yeah,
there's-
that's right, right, there's only one location here at 9,000, so it would really be 18,000.
Yeah, the reason why we carried one is because when the original pricing request and the original detail from Kevin came out, it was only referring to one of the islands. So recently, it was brought up that if we were going to do it, we would do both islands. So this document, obviously, I printed this out yesterday, so we're 1 day behind. It's the same thing with a few of the other things that we talked about today. They're all in here. Some of them need adjustment in both directions, up and down. And that's what I mean by this document being living and breathing. We try to capture everything that we know about, that we see, that we're hearing about, place a value to it so that you as the owner can understand, here are the issues that we're hearing about that are risks to the contingencies and approximate cost based on market values and our experience on multiple projects. So I'm not sure, Jim, if you envisioned us going through all of these. We can if you'd like.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think, yeah, we would ordinarily consider these in the form of a change order. So if they haven't worked their way through the system to get to a change order,
Right.
we wouldn't,
Right.
we're aware of them, obviously aware of them, looking at the list.
Right, and you see in any column or any row that you see that is labeled allowance, we're anticipating that will be paid through actual GMP allowances, which is the reason why when you looked at our first page, we have 122,000 in owner contingency exposures and 30,000 in allowances. When you add the two up, it comes out to be the total of
So
our current
go-
exposure.
going back to Mr. Best's question, these are best estimates,
Yep.
and
Those will change.
the worst-case scenario would be 100% or 152,000.
That's right. Yeah, and the estimates are not just numbers thrown at the wall. They're actually based on square foot pricing, unit pricing. They're based on tracking tickets with Shawmut. They're based on us doing our own takeoffs, our estimating department at Collier's doing takeoffs. So I realize that sometimes you look at this and it seems like there's no rhyme or reason, but there's actually some level of thought and quantity put into some of these numbers. But we feel pretty comfortable that based on what we know today, what we know right now, with the exception of the acoustical panels, which used to be on this list but has now been deferred because we don't truly know what's happening and we don't know if this is actually coming from the GMP budget. So that's the one thing we've taken off that we've talked about tonight. Other than that, every RFI that's been sent, every discussion that we've had on site, Jeff and Shawmut are in contact with me on a daily basis when they see things that could possibly be an exposure. So there's a lot of different people, including Kevin, who are inclusive on this list here.
Questions from the committee?
Okay.
So these numbers may move up and down, but they probably will balance each other out. One might come in a little bit more, and one might come in a little.
It's our experience, and obviously we do this on a lot of, this is our standard practice on a lot of projects. Our experience has been when we're calculating exposures that, yes, there are individual line items that will move up and down, but where we're tracking is a pretty good indication of where we might be at the end.
We might ask you and Kevin, is there anything on this list that requires committee action in anticipation of a change? In other words, being sensitive to our closeout schedule and we're coming across the finish line sooner or later here. I was just looking at CR 30. No, wait a minute. What was I looking at? MEP repair, CCD number 3. Is that work underway, and do you need approval from us? Because the CCD, to me, would indicate a construction change directive, which means the architect and the construction manager consider this work to be scheduled to have a serious impact on schedule or code inspections or what here?
That is the list of 4 items that were encountered in the kitchen related to the hood and the hot water temperature.
Are they up for approval tonight, Ben, in your report?
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Well, they're up for,
Okay.
yeah, for a
So
discussion.
anything that should come off this list onto your change order or PCO,
Yeah.
potential change order, you're going to bring up tonight?
There's a handful of change requests that are on the table tonight that are
Okay,
from here. That's right.
That's on here.
okay, thank you. You continue.
So for anybody who wants to see our detailed accounting, the next few pages will show you that. I broke it down in the first discussion we had here with the first few pages, so I don't think we need to go over this unless anybody has any questions, but the first is our detailed financial status report. This goes over basically what we've talked about in simpler terms, just has all of the different vendors and all of the different budget items there so you can see them. And then the following document is our contingency log, which this is basically the exposure log that we showed you, but this actually also captures everything we've ever put on the exposure log, things that we've rejected or taken off the log, change requests or change orders that we've approved. It's all on this one detailed contingency log. But everything that you see is pending on this is what you saw on the separate exposure log that I had earlier in the report here.
Any questions from the committee so far on this presentation?
The next page is just, this is the construction contingency tracker. This is from Shawmut. Their number is 247,678, where ours was 249,789. The only reason is because that PCI number 30 gas meter relocation, that hasn't been approved yet, that's up for tonight. So they've just included what was on the invoice packet tonight into their total tally on their tracker.
Might add that Shawmut has provided us with their allowance tracker. Does that tie into your number, Ben?
Yes, they have a few items on the allowance tracker right now that actually have not been approved yet because they're a part of this month's payment application that we'll be voting on tonight. So we don't carry that into our numbers officially until it's approved, but they all balance out. They're just showing something approved in their numbers before tonight, whereas we will make sure that it looks that way after tonight. So we are in agreement with their tracker.
This is a matter of information. If we go back into this acoustical panel that you now have taken out of a potential contingency item, do we have a number? I know we have a acoustical engineer's design, but do we have the number of panels and an estimated cost? What would we be carrying? Furnish and install.
We do have a design for it, so we do know exactly how many panels there are and how they would be hung. Did you guys work out an estimate?
Ben, you had a number at one time?
Yeah, I carried the number that was originally talked about in the beginning with the Recreation Department, which was $25,000, I believe, was what it was. Obviously, a lot of that depends on the type of panel that's picked, right? So that was the estimates that they were carrying, and so that's what we transferred over, assuming that they had some sort of scope they were thinking about and they knew the general pricing of it.
Can we get some kind of a number on that as we go forward, so that if we do close out the project and we do want to do the acousticals, the acoustical panels, we have a number? The panel's been specified, right?
We can do that. So I think what we're saying is it's going to be after these guys have left. So, I mean, if you'd like, I can work on a budget, and maybe they can help me a little bit.
It would, yeah. We don't care who does it, but we'd have to go out if it was we'd have to go out for a bid, right?
It was over 15,000, yes.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, we may want them, they may want to just get out, finish, leave.
Well, there's usually at least a 2-month lead time on those panels from the time they get all the drawings approved and everything goes to the company.
lead
You
item.
usually have an 8-week lead time.
It doesn't make sense
Be
to
like
keep
a
them on the
May.
job just to install acoustical panels.
If the committee would like, Mark from Shaw, Mark Vincent and I, we can work on, he can work on an estimate. We can work on what that would mean if you were to do it in terms of extra time or extra general conditions or whatever the exposures would be, and try to formulate some form of order of magnitude or
It's
pretty
going to have
accurate.
to be supervised by somebody
Right.
somehow anyway, either from the town or the Parks and Rec.
I do have material prices that the acoustical consultant gave me. We just don't have the labor. I don't have a sense of how many man-hours it would take to
What's the
actually
material
install them.
price? Do you remember off the top of your head what it was?
So each panel is 2 feet by 4 feet, and he said to assume about $150 panel.
And how many panels?
I knew you were going to ask me that. Yeah, it's somewhere like around 60 or 80 panels. It's quite a few.
Wasn't there, if we go back a year or so in discussion, Wasn't there a number thrown out somewhere around $50,000 to $55,000 for acoustic panels?
I don't remember it being that high. I want to say it was like 20 or 25,000. That's my recollection.
Based on your calculation, what would the material be worth?
So basically, you're talking 80 times 150, basically, am I correct? In the worst
12,000.
case scenario?
Plus, there's hardware. There are
No,
cables.
I'm
that
just
have to be
using
strung
the old
across.
3-time rule, so it could be 3 times the material with
plus, right.
labor, markup, labor being the other third, and markup and overhead profit supervision being another third, 36,000. I don't know. If you'll get into it, though, we'd appreciate it.
Certainly.
I can work with Mark and we can discuss what it would mean to the contract, the project, the closeout costs. Yeah.
It just seems silly to have someone else come in to that building, potentially touch it.
Well, there's an offset to having the time and effort to go out and bid it and put together specifications and bid documents and so forth. Corinne, you had a
I mean,
comment?
The town can bid it.
Right.
It's not, you do it every day, as long as you can provide us with a spec.
Well, that's the problem.
We can either
I
do
mean,
materials or materials and installation.
there's an engineering cost from Kevin's firm to put together the whole bid package, so you're right. It's probably, if we could do it and keep it locked in
We
close
basically
con-
have the technical end of that. We have already. We do have a design from them. We have a half a dozen drawings
Right.
showing all the panels.
It just seems more efficient to keep the same team who knows what's going on, who has it all.
Well, the point is they'd have to come back. You'd have to bring back for a period of a week or 3 or 4 days, let's call it a week, foreman or superintendent, and oversee it. Floor's going to have to be covered with man lifts. It's not just snap your fingers and put in a stepladder in there and hang panels, right?
That's probably accurate. It's a lot of work up high, so it would be worth it to get
These
a
panels
lift.
are hung, like with stainless steel cable.
No, I mean,
or-
I understand, I just think it would be interesting to
Right, one package.
one package,
Yeah,
one vendor, to go out and bid and have to pick the lowest bidder, and who knows what they would do to the building. I mean.
You have
know,
little faith.
I mean, well, come on, how long did it take us to land
Right.
on Summit?
Right, right.
Saying you want us to stay?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. We've been together for so long.
Yeah, right. What's another 5 years?
Yeah, we can,
That's right, don't break up the band.
I think Mark and I can work on that.
All right, thank you, Ben. Anything else from you on, as far as Colliers?
I think for me that all we have left is the invoice packet, and we actually attached the CCD number 3 to the back of the invoice packet for reference.
Because we got admonished last month for not doing that.
Right.
You remember?
Right, I do.
Okay, before we get to that, we do have an addition to agenda item 10, and that is the request, may I borrow that from you? Sure. The request from Colliers to extend their scope of services beyond November 30th. I'll simply read you the letter, since we don't have copies. As of November 30th, 2016, Colliers' current contract to provide part-time construction administration services. Does that make sense? Anyway, it ends on November 30th. Shawmut's current substantial completion date is September 30th, 2016. We expect construction activities such as punch list and project closeout to continue through January 2017 and possibly into February. We propose to provide our services on an hourly basis with a not-to-exceed limit of $6,136 per month, plus reimbursable expenses. We expect that the month of December will require the same level of service as the occurring throughout the project, and then possibly tapering in the month of January. We recommend reevaluation of need of our services in mid-January to ascertain if any further support is required. Bottom line, this is a request to continue the arrangement we have with Colliers. And the cost is $3,600, or $6,138 per month. Have you looked at it as far as the committee's concerned?
Yes. We think it's a very fair proposal. We would not want to see this project go forward without Colliers being on the job force. And in fact, I think that their duties will be escalated, especially during the month of December, because of the punch list items that must be addressed. So I would recommend that we approve this.
Should we approve the letter as is proposed, or do you have a recommendation regarding just the continuation of the monthly costs for December and January? How do you want to, what do you think is the best approach?
I think the letter is, you know...
Just approve the letter?
Yeah. Because
Okay, that's the cleanest
It
way.
becomes like a contract, sort of.
That said, does anybody want to see the letter? Are you comfortable?
Was there a not to exceed number?
Yes, 6...
On a monthly basis and not to
That
exceed.
was, okay.
Yeah,
Let me
so,
ask a question. If it runs to 3 months, are we exceeding $15,000 and we're going to run into a problem? No?
no. That would be if we bid it out. I mean, I think if you're going to look at this, you've got to look at an exposure of $18,000, right?
Yes, but I...
3 months, that's what I was
Yeah,
concerned.
That would be the outside,
Yeah.
for sure.
I'll make a proposal if you like. Motion.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
A motion's been made. Let me get a second.
I'll second.
1 second. There's motion made and second. Yes.
I made a motion. That we
Discussion?
That we accept the
letter.
letter of proposal from Colliers as read by Mr.
I have a
Clerk.
question.
Wanna-
She needs the letter, I would think.
I have a question. If you go partially into a month, let's say we go into the first week of March, is it prorated?
Yes.
Build on
right?
the hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's by the hour,
By the hour.
indicated by the hour.
All right.
Too, right?
Yes, yeah, so we found it probably most fair to everybody that we'll just do basically a T&M, and then there's a not to exceed on that T&M.
Okay.
Do we have labor rates in the Shawmut contract?
Yeah.
You do?
Oh, no, I'm talking...
We do?
In the Colliers contract?
Collier's contract?
Yes. Yes.
You do? Okay. So that would be the case if we went to a prorated, on a prorated basis. We're going to have to just review this month to month. The key thing is to keep them on board. So we're all set with that? Does that work with you?
Yeah, no, that works for us. I'm not sure if Chuck spelled it out correctly, but the important part of that is now that we're in the closeout phase, a lot of what we do besides this, which is we keep doing, is facilitate the closeout.
Right.
Which, by the way, has actually started between Shawmut and us facilitating it. We're actually already starting to close out the project. So by the time that we get the CO and we're ready to go, we're not waiting months and months and months to try to finalize this project.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Is it clear enough we're accepting the Collier's letter of November 21st?
Can I just ask a question? Mechanically, where does that money come out of?
So it's the way that we've tracked it at the moment with our sheet is from the soft costs. So technically, right now, it would come out of contingency, but there's a very high probability you will have excess funds from soft costs, extra budget line items that we'll never use, and that's where it would end up coming
Okay,
from.
so worst-case scenario, these contingency numbers that we looked at, or could go down by as much as $18,000?
No, I've actually captured that in here.
Where
So
is it?
It's when you look at the first page of my packet here, and you look at the line that reads in the first box, 11/28/2016 projected overages and soft costs, that's part of that number.
Okay, so that's already in there?
It's already
Okay.
in there.
Is that 19.8?
Yep. Now, not, all of that is not all of us, there's a good portion of it is us, but some of it, a little bit of it's Kevin, and then a little bit has been the industrial hygienist.
I'm not opposed, I just want to know which pocket it's going to come out of.
I think if you're looking at this, and you make it this decision tonight, you're looking at, you're probably going to take a small hit to your $285,000 underrun by about $5,000 or $10,000. That's what's really going to happen
Okay.
here.
As long as we all know where it's coming from.
Yeah, if we can afford it. Any discussion? That being said, a motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Against? Thank you. So that takes care of item 10, which would take us to item 11, review and approve any outstanding change order request, recently authorized change directives. We can combine that also with a review and approval of application for payment, which is item 12. How do you want to start?
Okay.
Who's managing?
The invoice packet, by the way, is a page in our packet, if you want to flip there.
It's also a separate document, right? These both the same?
Just wanted to make sure we tell them.
Mark,
Yeah.
your document is the
Yeah.
same as this document, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I would start with the invoices, and the first invoice is from DeStefano and Chamberlain, and that's in the amount of $4,364. I was just going to do these item by item.
Yeah, if you're proposing to make the motion and you have a seconder next
I'll
to you
second
there,
it.
then we can go.
Okay, all right, that was a motion, that was the proposed motion to pay this invoice.
Been made and seconded, invoice 5894 from
Was it
DeStefano.
four?
You need a description? Is that what happened last time we got into trouble?
Yeah, there's four of them that don't have a description.
It's for construction phase services, approximately 94% complete.
I do.
It's construction phase service.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
I got 4 of them, I don't know.
You have the list over there? Good.
I do.
Just the list, she just has a
There's no,
description.
yeah,
that's no
there's no description in it. The next item up is Collier's.
Wait a minute, did we vote on that? We did not.
No.
All in favor? Thank you. Carried.
Next item up is Colliers International, and the invoice number 17046, in the amount of $6,364.50. This is for the ongoing supervision as provided by Ben, inspection services, oversight.
Project oversight would be the...
Right.
Project oversight. All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Third item up is Shawmut's monthly requisition in the amount of $582,653.16. This is for, this is application number 14.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
The next invoice is for AMC.
Industrial hygienist.
Invoice number A111609. This is for the final visual assessment. And it's
$400.
it's in the amount of $400.
Mold.
And this gets paid to the town.
Right.
Yep.
Motion been made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? This is the mold mitigation, the end of it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against?
The next category is budget transfers and change requests.
So wait a minute, Rich, so the AMC is payable to the town of Fairfield?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Which reminds me, if I can just divert or change the subject for a minute. Have you had an opportunity to visit with purchasing regarding any town costs that might be coming in our direction?
So they have sent their ledgers or files to us, or to Chuck, I should say, and we had our accounting department look at it, and it all checks out.
Okay.
As
thank-
of, I don't know, when's last, this is probably a few weeks ago now, Corinne?
Or last report.
Yep.
So can we assume that legal bill that we deferred a long time ago will not be coming back?
I believe so, yes. I think Chuck will that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
All right.
sorry.
Finish. The next category is, as I said, budget transfers and change requests. First item up is for fire alarm devices, and this requisite, it was submitted by Shawmut. It's in the amount of $3,676. This has already been installed,
Yeah.
and
You want to talk about this one here? Added fire alarm devices? All right, so this, this change request specifically had to do with fire alarm devices. There were 2 horn strobes that had to be relocated, and then there were multiple devices that had to be added to the project. Was this a request of the building department, or was this a request from your office? It's been a little while.
It was a kind of a proactive request of the electrical engineer when he did one of his site visits and walked through the space. He identified areas that we thought there were adequate numbers of pull stations and strobes, but he found a few that weren't there that should be there, so he just went ahead and issued a drawing. I gave it to Shawmut, and they priced it out as a change order, and I would categorize it as something we needed to do to have a functional fire alarm system.
And in fact, it is done.
It's already done.
Yeah.
All right. 027 has been, motion is made and seconded to approve. All those in favor? Aye. Against? Thank you.
CR 028 is the heat trace modules in the amount of $2,447. This has also been installed.
Yeah, this change request came as a function, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, if I misspeak, but there were heat trace modules that were in unconditioned spaces that are not really rated for unconditioned spaces or cold weather or the fluctuations in temperature. They're really more of an interior model. So we swapped those out for 25 new weatherproof or weather-tight modules that will actually sit underneath the building in unconditioned spaces, and it's an improvement to the project, but something that Kevin felt, or his engineer felt very strongly that we should do so that the town does not have issues moving forward with heat detection modules and heat trace system that is not performing in unconditioned spaces where you really need it the most.
Okay, so,
It's similar to that, just to clarify, it's part of the fire alarm system. It's heat detectors, not exactly heat trace like you might put on a plumbing pipe to keep it from freezing, but heat detectors, that there was an issue that they were in unheated spaces, so they needed to actually have a monitoring module as part of the fire alarm system in a heated space that would detect if the detector didn't work. I think that's the easiest way I can explain it.
okay, we have a motion made and seconded regarding this item. All those in favor?
I just, regarding that item, I would just point out that that is not part of CCD 3. That was
Yeah.
a separate, okay. CR 030 is a transfer beam, a steel transfer beam, in the amount of $2,926. And this is an item already accomplished as well.
Okay, the motion is made and seconded. Discussion.
Was this an addition that was not part of the plan?
So we had a big change to the project when the revetment got taken out, and we added bracing under the building, and at the same time, we swapped out a lot of steel beams for wood beams. In the process of doing that, we missed one condition where under the building, the joists lapped together, and they sat on an original beam that we took out, and we thought that splice was in one spot, and it was actually over about 7 feet. So we had to add one beam to pick up a couple other beams, is the best way I can explain it, because by the time we had made those changes, the foundations were already poured. We were able to use some I would call surplus steel. We actually had wound up with a few extra beams on the job site, so it probably would have been more than that, but, you know, it was able to be done in a modest manner.
Thank you.
So the extra beams on the galvanized steel beams,
Yeah, galvanized steel beams.
and where are they now?
Well, I don't know that there was anything left after we did this change. And I'm not talking about much. I just mean, like, for example, the fabricator thought he still owned a steel beam in one spot where where the carpenters
If
actually
there's
owned a
anything
wood
like that of
beam.
value, it should go to DPW.
I
instead
think
of
it
the
probably
dumpster.
has. Have I misspoken, Jeff? Am I miscategorizing that?
Whatever contentious item. This one is a contentious item because remember, they put it in the wrong place and they charge us complete nothing, so we'll have to see how you want to handle it.
To make all the components that we had left over work. I think we ended up with a 5-foot piece of steel and
Okay, all
town
right,
may have grabbed it.
all right,
Yeah,
all right.
it wasn't much. I don't mean to suggest that they made a lot of extra stuff, but we were able to take advantage of that, and that's why it was Because normally, any time you modify steel in the field, it gets very expensive.
Okay, the
and this
motion's
was
been made and second
$2,900.
regarding CR 30. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you.
Next item up is CRO 31. This is the dumpster pad credit, and we do get a credit of $8,318.
Okay, motion been made and second. We like credits. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next one is a budget transfer number 12. This is the, in the amount of $2,111. This is a gas meter that was relocated. It was actually put in the wrong spot. And then, I guess, the aesthetics of where it's finally found itself placed is an improvement. The Finance Committee, or a portion of, some of the Finance Committee feels that this should be paid simply because it's an improvement to the project, in spite of the fact that it was mislocated by Shawmut.
Was it on a drawing somewhere? What happened?
What happened is we put the sleeve underneath the retaining wall in the wrong spot. Kevin came out to look at it, and under further review, everybody agreed that the meter where the sleeve was put is actually a better spot for the meter to go. And we have, put it in as a budget transfer to just take it out of our contingency.
All right.
It could be viewed as a betterment to the project, because it is a nicer place,
All
but
right, well,
Shawmut's
whoever, it
making
came out
it
of
a
their
budget transfer.
contingency, it's... All right, the motion is made and seconded regarding this budget transfer number 12.
I think there's some
Can I
discussion.
speak to that? I know, and Jeff and I discussed this at great length, and we've approved a lot of things, and I just think a mistake was made, and I don't believe, maybe you consider betterment. I think there should be some shared cost in the fact that it was put in the wrong place, you made it right. I don't think we should pick up the whole cost. In the overall scheme of things, it's not a lot of money. I just think, to me, it's a philosophical thing. I just think Shawmut should have some responsibility because it was put the wrong.
And that's why we're taking it out of our
It's all on their
construction
side of the
contingency.
ledger. It's all out of construction contingency.
I think the point, I think the point is that it's all right for it to come out of their contingency, but it was a mistake. So it's a cost to us. Coming out of the contingency, but it's a project cost. So I mean, I think the statement's been made. I mean, it's the only one in the whole project, so...
I'll pass on that, but again, I just think philosophically there should have been some sharedness. But again, it's not enough to hold the meeting up or hold Shawmut.
Right.
I'm just expressing my feelings.
Thank you. The motion's been... Yeah, the motion, for nothing. The motion's been made and second regarding this. Do you care if you're a seconder, even though you don't, you want somebody else to second?
I can second it, I'll just vote how I want.
Okay, yeah, okay. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Budget transfer number 13.
13 is in the amount of $3,941 for fence relocation. That's self-explanatory. It was done for safety reasons and to allow as much of the beach access to the public as possible.
And where's this being, this coming out of?
Our project requirements. We have a $4,000 line item in our PRs for
Okay.
temporary fence moving.
All right, so no impact on the owner's contingency. Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
The next group of changes are for discussion. It's CRO 29, and this is the stones by the bioswale that Kevin pointed out in the photographic display, in the amount of $4,478. It's the opinion of the Finance Committee that that is too much money.
Want to explain, who would be best to explain this situation to us on the construction,
I
design
would
and
think
construction
Ben
team?
would have an opinion.
So what this proposal actually is 340 linear feet by 18 inches wide by 4 inches deep. So when you calculate that out to cubic yards, it's a little more than 8 cubic yards. At the, like I said to you during our exposure log, through our experience on many projects with many contractors here in Connecticut, we have a pretty good feel of what unit prices are, and they do fluctuate, but they fluctuate within a certain range, and in this particular case, this price here is about $530 or $528 a ton. We just thought that that was well above the market value. So Colliers, we believe this is a good idea. We believe it is the right thing to do for the project, for the town, to prevent erosion. We just feel that, and it's our opinion, that this is just a little bit higher than we would recommend for payment, that's all.
Kevin, what's the installation technique? How is this to be done? You dig out, and these stones are going to be flush with the asphalt and taper down?
There's not much excavating required, so they would rake the mulch that's there to the side. The pavement itself is, I believe, almost 4 inches thick, so they may have to remove a little bit of the base material that's off to the side of the pavement, but not a lot of excavation. Then they would put down a small strip of fabric and the rounded river stones. That's pretty much it. But feel free to add anything if you guys think I missed something.
You say rounded river stones, how big are they? About golf ball size?
No, bigger, 1.5 inches.
How are these
You
stones
do pay
different
more
than any
than-
other stone?
I'm sorry?
How are these stones different than any other stones? I mean, they're just stones, aren't they? Rocks.
Well, for something that somebody could walk on, you do want it to be rounded. I mean, it's River Jacks is the common name for them. You buy them at landscape nurseries, and you do pay more than a
They're
typical
smooth.
crushed
They're
stone.
oblong, egg-shaped, round, smooth stones
Yeah.
that they've been separated out of river wash, sifted out.
How about we use some of the porous pavers?
Not sure where they went. Any idea where those went?
Well, I don't think we're arguing of the need, and there's no other alternative other than river stones to do it. You could use.
Eventually, when the plants mature enough to grow in, they will do a great deal of stabilization, but I think it's important that we do it in the meantime.
Well,
And
I'm not
I
questioning-
wish on the original detail we had them. If we had, then most of that money would have already been in.
Kevin, have you looked at this independent of anybody else?
I have not independently looked at costs. I left that to Ben.
I've thought about this particular, just because I do think, just in my opinion, and Collier's opinion, that it is something the project would benefit from. The other option that we can do, if the committee wants to move forward with it, if we don't agree with the pricing at the moment, the other option is to approve it and release it on a time and a material basis with a not to exceed of $4,478. I mean, that's always an option if the committee wanted to actually do this work. They could approve it as the way that it is now. We're just advising that we think that the pricing's a little high.
Does that mean that you actually get to price the material, or they tell you where the material is coming from? You get to call up the vendor and say how much is the material?
Usually they'd get a invoice from the vendor that would have
Right.
a backup price on it, saying
But
that
the
it came
invoice
from
would be
here.
market. You would check it to make sure that it was market?
Absolutely.
And does the landscape guy have hourly rates embedded in his contract?
I believe so. Their rate, so it would be the published rate for the year for a landscaper.
The other alternative that we thought about was possibly having DPW do this work.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. I mean, I can't see why they can't find rocks when they're mowing the lawns or whatever else they're doing.
Well, this we got to be careful. This is a landscape feature that's going to...
Round rocks. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
round rock. This is a landscape feature, should be put in by a landscaper, because they're going to have, this band is going to have to be captured. Otherwise, the stones are going to be rolling around all over the place. So it really ought to be done right. I don't know, my suggestion here would be time and material, whether or not to exceed.
Yeah, the one thing that we should consider in our decision is, will this impact the finishing of the project itself? Is this?
No, this is not a weather, well, it could freeze, but
It's just getting the delivery of stones from Farmington and having a guy out there, 3 guys, as it says, for a day to install them.
you said this rolls out to be $500 a ton?
Yeah. My calculations,
So about 5 times, probably about 5 times the material cost? $100 a ton?
Rounded Riverstone, when we were calling around, is somewhere between $70 to $100 a ton, yeah.
Sounds high. We can start by entertaining a motion to approve on the, as a not to exceed based on a time and material basis. I think we need it, because I think that's going to be a sore spot, and I think it'll, whether the grasses grow or not, I think we'll always need it to reinforce that apron into the bioswale. Anyway, so if, motion made and seconded to go ahead, if you feel that so inclined?
You making the motion?
All right, I'll make the motion.
And I will
Made and
second it.
seconded. Discussion. So the motion here is to approve this on the basis of a not to exceed $4,478 on the basis of time and material. That satisfactory?
Yeah.
Discussion. Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Against?
So it's,
Failed.
Three,
have to
fails.
vote again, it was what, you voted for it?
Yes.
And I voted for it, and then, so three voted for it and 3 against it, so we have a Mexican standoff.
No, it fails.
It failed.
It
Yeah.
fails.
No, there was,
The motion fails.
well, yeah, the
Yeah,
motion
yeah,
failed,
yeah.
but it's the same as a Mexican standoff.
So that case, what would be your recommendation from the design and construction team? An alternate price, or negotiated price, or alternate materials, or what would you suggest, Kevin?
I'd like to reconvene with Shawmut and talk about options, and perhaps we bring Joe Michelangelo into the loop and see what they might be willing to do. Certainly, I mean, you know that if the DPW has to spend money to order stuff, they're probably going to bill it to this project, I would assume. So eventually it comes back.
All right, let's bring it up with Joe.
Sure.
And see what can be done.
Can we have it
Obviously,
at next Tuesday's meeting?
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least
Just so
prepare 'em
we
for
can
it.
Get as much time as possible.
Okay, the next item, I believe, is moot.
Right.
Yeah, it's,
That's not the same 8,000 that's in the other.
Yeah,
8,000.
yeah, we just, I put it on here,
I mean, this goes...
CRO 32.
Yeah, this goes to these 2 photographs. And at the committee, we can discuss it at this meeting, or the next meeting, or a following meeting. The question is, are we satisfied with this condition?
Yeah. I think we should talk about it. If you think that it won't impact the project if we wait to see where some of these other dollar amounts fall, I think we should keep it on the list to talk about either next meeting or the meeting after. It's just, it looks like we ran out of money. To me, it does seem like it would be a safety issue as to people understanding where they're stepping down off that asphalt down, unless we paint it, but then that may detract from the total look of the pavilion.
But don't we run a point, I assume that we're running out of time to pour concrete, so in other words, the best of all worlds would be we'd have to wait till the spring and we'd have to hire somebody to rip it out and pour concrete in, right? I assume the window is gonna close on concrete pretty quickly, so we probably have to decide if we want to do it now, before the
When
freeze.
does it close? When would you-
No, it'd be concrete.
I don't.
Weather permitting, you could put
Yeah,
concrete
put
in
concrete
the
in
middle
there.
window. Yeah.
You'd
So
have
it
to
wouldn't
freeze
be,
anything there?
temperature- yes.
I think the committee should consider the picture. The plantings are very small. They won't always be that small. The plantings will be much larger, and I think that will kind of mask the
look?
The look. And I think if DPW or someone were to just paint that curb or put safety reflector tape, something semi-attractive, but just to delineate where the sidewalk starts and the ShopRite parking lot starts, then I just, I'm just not in favor of ripping up something that we've already done and paid for and doing it again a different way.
You're right.
And that was part of my whole argument for the last year about the porous pavers in the parking lot, and I think it's just, on a smaller version, same story, redo. Just my opinion.
Any opinion on any of that?
Yeah, I would just point out that Ian is exactly right. Not only will it cost almost $18,000, but you have to pay for the cost of removing it and carting it away and so on and so forth. So I think this is a done deal as far as just leave it there. Paint it.
But the two choices, one is to just pass on that or vote it down. In other words, if you remember at the last meeting when we had something that we didn't believe wanted to deal with, we took it off the table. So the question would seem to me that if it's on the table, we either have to vote on it or request it to be taken off the table. I'm not,
Well, then I would make the motion that we take this item and vote on it, if yea or nay, to remove it completely or not.
That's a motion?
Yes.
Motion's been made that the item be removed and not done. Is there a second?
I'll second
Been
it.
made and second. Discussion? You get over it?
I can vote against.
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Okay. Any discussion, any further discussion? This motion will end up removing this line item from the PCO log.
All in favor?
Yep. All in favor of removal? So it's not going to proceed. Thank you. Next
This
item.
item is,
You said nay?
I said nay, but the majority rule.
I know. I
But did you vote in favor? You did.
I did not vote in favor.
Okay.
Okay, so who made the motion?
I made the motion.
Okay.
And I seconded. So you abstained from voting?
No, I said no.
You said no.
Oh, you, oh, I'm
I said I
sorry.
voted against.
Voted against,
I
yeah.
voted against taking
You want
it off.
Taking it off.
Taking it off.
Like,
Right.
Very,
You voted no for no.
the way the politicians usually do it.
That's right. Troublemaker, figure out.
Okay, thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you for your support. It was my idea and it failed.
You voted against your idea.
I voted against it because I had already communicated with the project engineer that I thought that, given the time and money, I was fighting for this. You can ask the learned group here and ask them to get the price, so we'd be prepared tonight to discuss this. Actually made the photographs to make sure that we could, so, but it's obviously not going to fly at this stage. If I've learned anything, this committee has a mind of its own. So we'll do the next item.
Next item is number 1158, EST. It's the Auto Home Communications Electronic System upgrade, a security system upgrade in simple terms, in the amount of $5,177.08. This is to be done.
This is an estimate from the Town of Fairfield's security vendor. What you own in the project as part of the contract here is the attempt to recommission, turn on, function the existing security system. There are a handful, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark and Jeff, but 4 or 5 new contacts that are involved with the contract scope, but that's about it. And the intent was to basically use the same system that was there before and just re-energize it.
I thought this was a new head end, a new...
Well,
panel.
I was explaining what the contract owed.
Oh, okay.
What we owed, what we are owed as part of the contract. So that was basically it, to try to recommission the existing system and hope that it works. That's basically what you had. And now what this is the Town of Fairfield, the DPW, and the Facilities Maintenance Departments came in and brought their vendor in, who provided them with this quote of $5,177.08, and provides a new head end, a new module, or multiple modules, I think, and then new motion detectors, new contacts. They're basically using the same system, but they're improving it and adding more contacts and adding more devices to the system to get it to function the way that they want it to function. So when the project is done, the building is secure and they feel good about it. So this was something that came from the DPW as what would be a back charge if it was approved to the project to install and commission and turn the system on.
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion's made and seconded.
Seconded, yeah.
I don't know too much about this other than I believe it should be supported. Be happy to hear from the committee. This is a we hope, $1 or $7.2 million project that needs to be secured. It's not always occupied. It's a valuable town asset. Questions, discussion? Motion's been made and second, discussion.
Discussion, thank you. Can you give us a little bit more detail in terms of what this security upgrade entails? I mean, what will it give us that we don't have now?
I'll try to fill that. This was basically the result of the town's facility manager walking through the building with the security vendor. I had no input in it. I think Shawmut probably had limited input into it. It was basically he described to the vendor what it is he wanted for the operation of the building. My understanding is we'd basically only be reusing the wires in the walls, and that all the contacts and motion sensors and panels would be replaced with the system they want. There was a detailed written estimate. It wasn't attached to any of these packets, but it is something that the town facilities manager received from him, confirmed that's what he wanted, passed it along to the project team to say, how do we go forward?
Yeah, I have that.
I could be wrong, but I thought at the last meeting, we were told the fact that the old system was not integrated into the new town system, and the fact that it wouldn't work.
Fire.
Well, just be careful,
Oh, I'm
because
sorry.
there's a fire alarm system and a burglar alarm system. They don't talk. They're completely separate, and they have to be by code. The burglar alarm system that's in the building is a fairly basic system. It's not high-end. Might not be what the town would prefer to have. They do have the ability to separate security-wise different parts of the building into different zones and who can control what, and I think that might be some of what they're after here, because you now have a locker wing that's completely separate, security-wise, from the rest of the building. But all I can say in summary is that this is something the town's facility manager asked for. This is what they would like to have in the building in order to operate it the way they want to operate.
And the reason it got traction, I believe you're correct, I mean, I can tell you from going to some of the OAC meetings, is that the existing system should be replaced. We could hotwire it, put it back together, make it functional, but will it adequately protect a hard-fought-over, expensive, repaired, rebuilt facility? No. So I would recommend that it be passed, but I'd be happy. Motion made and second, we're still discussing.
Yeah, I'm just a little confused. Maybe you can help clarify a little bit more. I apologize. But Kevin, didn't you just say that this proposal would be using the existing wiring?
My understanding is I think that's all of the existing system they can reuse with this. Does that sound right, Jeff? They're going to replace all the working parts?
Yeah.
There wouldn't be any new wiring in the new piece. In other words, there would have to be wire in the new piece, right?
I could probably talk on this for a half an hour,
I don't
because I
want
walked it with the security people and the town. We are performing the portion of our contract that we need to perform according to the drawings. We are adding contacts on the doors of the new wing. We're adding a motion detector. The system that's in there now, that was originally running the building, is not a very good system. It's not partitionable. The system that was put into the building after the building was damaged to essentially monitor the one room, that is the better system. That's the system they want to take off the wall, mount where the original system was running the building, completely redo it, add new keypads. None of that was on our contract. So, and with this new system, it can separate the locker wing from the great room wing, and they can turn portions on and not turn other portions on, so when they're just running the locker wing, the rest of the building stays secure. This is all from their security vendor. They're adding motion detectors, they're changing door contacts on existing doors that they need to change. They're kind of changing the way the building's monitored. It's a lot more sophisticated than,
Given this is a commercial, well, it's a public building, but it's a commercial by standard, what, is this elaborate, standard?
No, this is very standard. Very, very standard. It's sort of designed different, the building's sort of laid out different, and you need to monitor it differently.
Okay, Ellery?
Well, I'm going to vote for it, but I'm more or less on faith because there's all different levels, as you said, of security, and maybe we want something better, but there's really no options that are before us on the table right now. So I'm going to support it, but
Thank you.
maybe a message should go to the town to take a look at this, and maybe out of the town budget somewhere. If they think it should be a better system, they can find some money.
Well, this is a long story with the town and with their facilities guys, right? And this is what we've been through that question.
Mhm.
They were pretty adamant about this is what they wanted.
Jim, do
This
you
is
want
what
me
who
to
wanted.
run down what they're actually
Yeah,
providing for that money, or?
Yeah, the facilities guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Unless
understand
we
that.
have a question. Any further questions or discussion on this motion? And I believe the motion has been made and seconded to approve the $5,177, which is already carried in your calculations as far as the balance to cost to complete. That said, is motion made and seconded, all in favor? Aye. Okay, passed, thank you.
The
Last one.
the final item is CCD3, which is probably, that's been pretty much beat to death, I guess, at this point,
Yeah, it's
right?
it's at the back of the packet here. The final 2 pages of my packet have the actual CCD issued by Kevin, or proposed by Kevin, and the page behind it is the actual work letter scope description of the items that we're talking about here.
You have or do we find here, or do you have an estimated,
I do. So, in all transparency, I do have it. It's line item number 77. This scope is still a little bit vague because there's a couple of cans of worms that are a possibility once we start opening some things, but I believe that I overestimated this at least by 20% or so, maybe more. But there's just a couple of things that are still unknown, so I went a little bit heavy on my estimate here. So it is being carried, there's quite a bit being carried forward in my exposure log, and I don't think we're actually going to need that much for it, but I wanted to be very conservative on this.
Let me ask you a question. When you showed us the original 152, we decided not to go through line item by line item. But if we're going to spend 20,000, let me just ask you, line item number 42, is that a good possibility? We're going to have to come up with $30,000 on pre-construction costs?
It's a good possibility. Steve Pittinello has been championing that effort, and we had a meeting with Shawmut and with purchasing at the town of Fairfield last week. Or maybe it was this week. Was it Monday? Anyways, yeah.
so the proposal here is to proceed on the basis of time and material? Or how is this going to be handled?
A lump sum negotiated cost. The only reason why CCD was issued was because of schedule conflicts. We're trying to meet the CO date, so they will still submit pricing, lump sum pricing. It will still be negotiated. It will still be vetted. It will still be, we're not going to turn over anything that we believe is more than what it's worth. So they'll provide pricing, but the CCD authorizes them to get this work started immediately so that we can get the CO work done, so that we don't have a conflict with getting the certificate of occupancy.
Okay, and the basis of need, which is, these are code-driven issues, by and large?
Absolutely, yeah.
They're code-driven issues. You have to meet a schedule. You don't want to delay. This falls into a category at the moment of a construction change directive, which takes precedence over a change order or as a priority over a change order. Means you're directing it to be done in the field. And it's not to exceed $20,000, the way we would look at it? Or is that?
That's my current exposure. There's not a not to exceed on the CCD, but that's the way.
You're not going to do a time and material. You think you can define the scope enough that you can get a number?
We talked about time and material, but based on the scope that is in here and the amount of research that needs to be put into it, it's hard to define time and material. That's why we'd rather go and get lump sum negotiated pricing for the work, because it's still vague as to how much or how little of it we need to do. A lot of this has just come up, and we don't know the total intent of the scope until we get into it more.
Just to add on to that, I mean, lump sum in the sense that they're probably already doing the work by the time we get the lump sum, because it's got to happen, and it has to happen right away. I mean, I thought it was T&M, but I mean,
Yeah,
if
what I have
you're
the-
seeing it as a
How are
lump
you
sum
running
after
it?
the fact.
What I have the right to do per contract is direct them to do the work T&M, and that those prices can be negotiated afterwards. That a T&M, that the time and material isn't necessarily the exact end cost, and that those costs can be negotiated after the directive to
Does
give
the
them the
scope
T&M.
of work lend itself to being done T&M?
Yeah. I still don't have feedback yet from environmental engineering. They are in contact with me about it, and they are researching it, and they're going to be getting back to me shortly on their impact.
The subcontractors that be involved, Jeff, are good as far as T&M work is concerned?
They've been very good.
Well, it's a construction change directive, and I believe you're correct as far as the interpretation of your responsibilities. So, however you need to do it, the team's got to, we approve it tonight, you've got to keep it under control.
Yep.
This is something we have to do. Is there a motion made and seconded to my right here?
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we should approve this.
But I think we have to put a number in there.
Well, it's going to be 20 at the time being.
Is that the number that's going to go in the motion? Is your motion for 20?
We could do a not to exceed of 20,000, and then while they're tracking T&M, if we approach that number, then we're going to have to
Come back.
evaluate where we're at.
We're
If
not
you'd
going to
like
do it
that.
open-ended.
So that's the motion.
Motion's
not
made.
to-
Motion made and seconded, 20.
The,
And I'll second it based upon not to
yeah,
exceed.
not to exceed.
Not to exceed. Yeah, that's the way it should be done.
Right.
These are
Jim-
code issues, we can't, we inherited them, we have to solve them. They're just like everything else that we've inherited, whether it be insulation, whatever.
Which passed inspection, by the way.
The insulation did, good. So you're putting the ceiling tiles in?
Starting Monday.
Any other discussion?
I have one thing really quick to add. Since we're amending the CCD to change the language with the not to exceed on the 20 grand, can we perhaps add the fire department connection to this as well? Because that's just as important for getting our CO.
No, I think let's do one at a time here. That's a,
They have to vote on this now, right? We got to get this going.
Okay.
We can also do another CCD for the fire department connection.
Okay.
yeah, forget the fire department connection. This motion's made and second, stands on the previous discussion. Anything else? That said, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. You want to address that right now, or do you want to wait till the fire department connection?
Some aspects of it are still being vetted. I know Jeff met with the fire protection contractor today to kind of trace out how that would have to be repiped. But the crux of the issue is where their hose would connect to the building is not a spot they are content with because of, running the hose through a handicap ramp and up onto a deck to get to it, and they want it more readily accessible. It doesn't matter that the plan showed it where it is. It's something that,
We've been down this road. Right.
once you see it in person, you realize it's not going to work. That's fine. There is no number on that at this point because it's still being worked out. It's got to happen. It will be a cost. There will be piping that has to be run under the building, across, and out where it has to connect. And we're talking about the nuances of how high above grade it has to be. And I'll
have a
welcome
number,
Shawmut to throw in whatever they know that I just didn't cover just now.
I spoke with the project manager from K&M, and he said it would, and I'm being conservative, that it would probably be 2 guys, 3 days, the most. That's conservative. So conservatively, $6,000 to $7,000. And there are a lot of constraints with working in a 2-foot space as well. It's not as easy as just normally relocating any fire department connection. They're in a very confined space.
Is this something the committee wants to address?
Use the same analogy you did in the last one. I don't think we have any choice in the matter. If the fire department says no, because it's in the wrong place, we're in trouble. So I think we have to do it. And we can try to negotiate price with Shawmut, and I don't think, we're going to get anywhere with that. So
We've
I
got to
think
maintain some law and order and authority over it. So the issue would be to convert the issue to a CCD, have it a field direction by you, Kevin, or the MEP engineer, and do it on a time and material basis? Is that is this the path we're going down?
Yes, unfortunately, I don't think there's any other way we can handle it because it's got to happen right away. I believe the issue was brought to Shawmut's attention yesterday or the day before, if I'm not
Could we
mistaken.
do it not to exceed $7,000?
Yes. I think you could do that.
Would that be CCD 4, Ben? And I'll make a motion on CCD 4.
This is a new CCD, motion's being made.
The motion being that a new CCD number 4 be authorized in the amount of not to exceed $4,000, and this is...
No, he said $7,000.
Wishful thinking, $7,000.
That's
And that's for the
relocation.
relocation of the...
You're the guy for trying, can you?
Fire, what are they calling it? Fire
Department connection.
Fire department connection.
Second?
I second it, yes.
Well, motion made and second for CCD number 4, which is going to be the relocation of the fire department connection to a more accessible area at the request of the fire department? Fire marshal? Who requested this?
Fire marshal.
Fire marshal.
Fire chief. Fire chief.
Fire chief? That said, any more discussion? Can't sneak it in under this, we're going to have a rider here to add the concrete,
Oh, you're putting it over, only Congress can do that.
there was going to be amendment here to add a special condition.
Didn't he
Yeah.
retire today?
Okay.
We unbundle all motions, we don't have these.
All right, the motion is made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, you can proceed.
Payable to Shawmut? Is
Excuse-
that who will be payable to Shawmut? You have to say who it would be payable to.
Well, it's not an invoice.
Huh?
It's going to be a project cost.
Okay.
Normal, it's not, this is not a, it's not a requisition. This is just a CCD, like a change order. We don't have any payments yet. Hopefully it'll be a lot less.
Mr. Chairman, I just asked Ben if he would just revise this schedule and then send us a new copy.
Ben, did you get that? We revised the schedule based on today?
asked him first. He said he would.
Okay.
I'll, would you like me to send it to the whole committee, or how would you like me to send it
Yes.
out? Okay.
Yeah. Cover sheet is, I mean, the cover sheet here, Ben, is really what the committee needs to see, and that is the total project budget and the estimated cost to complete. And it looks like we impacted our estimated cost to complete, which is still on the positive side, by $5,000 or $10,000 tonight.
Yeah. The only question I have that, am I adding, or is it the assumption of the committee that I will add the acoustical paneling into this exposure?
I think you should.
Okay.
I think you should. I think this committee is going to act in favor of the acoustical panels. We have to keep in mind that I think Parks and Recreation is carrying a line item.
Well, I don't disagree with you, Mr. Chairman. I just wonder whether, and again, you said, and I don't disagree with you, not spend any time, but I wonder whether any of these items that totally 152 as of today
Sorry, I
could
wasn't
possibly be
reading that.
taken off this list.
There are
Or you-
some.
I think they should. I think that's the next step. As we get closer to closing out, Ben ought to be able to go through that list and see if there's anything there that should be struck or removed.
Based on tonight and some of the things that were not voted for, I can remove that, and then I will meet up with Kevin and...
So it might be a wash tonight. I
Well,
don't
again,
know.
I'm not saying to do it just because I want to do it. I'm just saying as we get closer and closer to the end, I think it's critical. Again, we've committed to bring this project in on budget. Things have come up that we didn't account for. Some of the things that one wonders why we had a facility that was not up to code, but that's not our problem. So nevertheless, we have to live with the hand that we dealt with us, and I just want to make sure we're going to get, as we get close, we're not just going to prove something. So
We've invested a significant, fortunately for contingency, we
Jim?
didn't use it in areas where we thought, like the mechanical system, but we sure used it in code and other issues. Yes?
I seem to recall, I think you're right, or somebody said that Parks and Rec is carrying the acoustics as a line item.
Isn't that true?
I believe that's true. I believe I recall that because I think I remember when Jerry got it approved. I think I was chairman at the time, and if it's still there, that could save the committee some money.
Right.
They did, I recall as
Yeah.
well, several years ago. I don't know if it's still there, but I recall
Yeah.
several years ago it was.
All right, I'll address that with the chair of the the Parks and Rec?
I got to get hold of Jerry.
All right, you want to ask?
Yeah, I'll ask him.
Well, the new guy.
Just Anthony's the interim.
Anything else for tonight? Gentlemen, anything else for
Sure.
tonight?
That's all I know.
Jeff, you all set?
Move to adjourn?
Motion made and second, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.